Hi, everybody. Michelle here. I know it's been a while. I was trying to think of something that I can share today. And, um, I have some clients that are women clients that are between the ages of, I would say, mid 30s to mid 60s. So I thought, I'm going to talk about menopause and talk about, premenopause, just being a woman, my experience with hormones, some things that I would have done differently. I don't want to like have regrets because I believe that everything brings us to where we are today, and I like where I'm at today. But, should I have done some things differently or sooner? So I'll start from the beginning, and not every woman will go through this. I believe that if you've had childhood trauma, a lot of ongoing stress, more than likely you're going to have hormonal issues because of the adrenal glands being overstimulated. So even somebody who overtrained, is very athletic, this will apply to those people that are probably struggling more through perimenopause and then menopause. I think I was born with low one of the hormones, maybe progesterone. Because by the time I started menstruating, and I think I was in the eighth grade, um, I had very bad cramps. Like they were so bad that I had to stay home from school. Like it was 2 days and it was pain from, my stomach all the way down. So I could not be in school. Um, Sorry, my dog, a little OCD. um, get off of her face, Dee. Go lay down. One of my dogs has mental health issues. So she licks my other dog's face and ear and private parts in an OCD way. So I have to stop her. Um, Anyway, so I had a lot of issues from the very beginning. And my friends who were sexually active were on the pill. And they told me that they did not get cramps since they were on the pill. So I thought, oh, maybe I should take it for that. And I started taking birth control pills, and it did solve that problem. Although I still had issues with pain, just it wasn't as debilitating, that kept me at home with, heating packs and, taking over the counter pain, all that. So, I spent probably 20 years on birth control pills, which I now know was just covering up a hormonal imbalance from the very beginning. And the reason why I say that I believe it was progesterone is because, I was brought up in a very chaotic household. And so there was a lot of stress. And then you know, to deal with it, I would go out and stay out late, drinking. I did drugs for a little while. I even started smoking cigarettes. So I was doing a lot of things at a young age like that. And I also had a sugar addiction. I also know, reflecting back, that I had a mouthful of mercury from, back then the dentist put mercury in our mouths for fillings. And so I think that that played a lot into some of the stresses that was going on, and not being able to sleep was because of all that mercury in my mouth. Um, and I would grind my teeth. I mean, it just honestly, from puberty to 2 years ago, it was tough. I'm going to be 57. So I know that doesn't sound very encouraging to women, but it's challenging being a woman. We have so many more hormones than men, and men have their own other challenges that may not be related to hormones, but that's not what this podcast is about. So, we have those challenges. And, if you're got a lot on your plate, so as you get older, you're going to school, maybe not, get married, bad relationships, kids, women sacrifice their bodies and more hormonal imbalances by having children. And then raising children is a very tough job. I never did it because I babysat a lot, so I kind of knew. I was like, I don't want to deal with that, especially because I didn't want to be a single mom. And I never felt secure in any of my relationships that they would last. And I didn't want kids that badly. So that's why I chose not to have kids. So women, it's tough. And then we don't shut off our brains, we're just constantly thinking, every relationship I've been in, you go to bed and like 2 minutes later, they're like deep sleep, heavy breathing or snoring. And I'm just laying there like, do, do, do. So women, in that respect have a lot of problems. So it's hard for us to sleep. And then we have what I call the bipolar years, because your hormones are all over the place. So we can have very, up and down with our feelings and stuff. So I would say the 20s, 30s were very challenging in that way. And now I know in my mid 30s, I was very much in the throes of perimenopause because at that time I saw a naturopathic type doctor in Florida because I was dealing with multiple infections. Like I had strep throat, then I had a UTI, and just all these rounds of antibiotics. And I had been trying to stay away from antibiotics because they had caused a lot of gut problems. And so when I started seeing this one particular doctor who did kinesiology, and then he backed it up by doing these tests, he said, he said, you're in bad shape. I think I was 35 or 36. He's like, your hormones are a mess, your neurotransmitters are a mess, and you have a leaky gut. So, and I know I was a mess because I literally like slunched over at my desk and at work and felt so miserable. And like, life and how I felt was just awful. I remember it very vividly. So I saw him for probably a couple of years, and we did get my gut healthy again, lots of probiotics, and I think L-glutamine. I cut out a lot of foods that were causing intolerance. And that's when I started cleaning things up, my mid 30s. Um, so I think I did vegan, and even that doctor I saw, he said that that wasn't healthy. But at the time, I just thought it was. I do have issues with eating animals and in certain ways because I love animals and it just kind of grosses me out. Like I hate handling raw meat and stuff, but it is healthier for us to eat animal protein. Without a doubt. I've probably been vegetarian 5 times from teenager, up until I found hair mineral analysis in my late 40s. And it always starts out really good. And then, bleeding gums, digestive problems, all these other issues come up. So I do not think vegan is healthy. But I think a vegetable based, clean eating type diet with good protein, of course, is good. So he helped me a lot. But, once I started feeling better, I never addressed things about my personality. I was always busy and doing things, and I had a hard time resting. I still am challenged with that, but I do know how to shut it off and unwind better at night than I ever have. So, that, and it could have been that I had more energy back then and I just wasn't as self aware and I wasn't as grounded and peaceful as I am now. So I just was still doing a lot of things. I was partying, I was staying out too late. So it's like I changed my diet, but, that fixed some of the problems, but, it didn't fix all the problems. So I would go through periods of where I would feel better, get the adrenals doing better, and then slowly, go back into being normal. And And then something would compound and I would go into like an adrenal crash again. So I've probably had, I would think, it definitely 4 times for sure that I could say, yeah, I crashed big time. Um, so each time coming out of it, I kind of learned more things. When I was finally going through menopause in my 40s, but it started in my 30s. By the time I was 45, I saw another um, doctor, osteopathic, who was like a natural doctor in Las Vegas. And he did the same thing, running, all these different tests. And he's like, you have no hormones, like none. Like estrogen was like 0.01, progesterone was like zero, minus. If, I think it was like 0.06. And then I had no testosterone. So he's like, you have the hormones of an 85-year-old lady. And at the time, the adrenal crash was so bad, like I guess maybe was showing some signs of Addison disease. I was really skinny. My eye was twitching. My skin, I had like discoloration in my skin. It was really weird, like this white patches and stuff. So it was really bad. And I was doing yoga, and I remember standing up once and I literally like almost passed out. I had to slowly go down so I didn't crash, by myself and hit my head. So it was really bad. And that was because of, the where I was at hormonally and just compounded stress. So I worked with him for probably a year and a half. He put me on bioidentical hormones. I had stopped having a menstrual cycle for 4 or 5 months. I had gotten off the birth control pill 2 years prior. And then when he started the hormones with me, my ovaries started to kind of crank and I was having intermittent cycles. And then I stopped being vegan. I even went through a phase of fruitarian. That is horrible. Some of these dramatic things could probably help somebody with cancer, but you don't want to do them long term. But it is a good way to kind of flush out those things if you need to, especially if somebody's coming from a really horrific diet and then they overwhelm themselves with, all these vegetables and fruits that are so high in nutrition. But then what happens is, it's like here's the, scale, you're like all the way over here, and then you tip it and you go all the way to the other side. So we want to find a middle way, a balance. So that's why I feel strongly about not doing those diets, at least for a long time. So, we worked on those things. And at the time, I was traveling out of the country. I had been to Japan, Thailand, Costa Rica, Panama. And so being thin and having adrenal fatigue and having this cold, body, I was a good host for parasites. So, I didn't realize that parasites were such an issue. I remember years prior doing liver cleanses, but and seeing some, but I didn't realize that how bad it could be. So after we did these other things to get me feeling better, we did a compounded parasite cleanse. And they were 4 different, of the major drugs, but compound. And I did it for 30 days. That helped tremendously. Like I would say within 24 hours of taking those drugs, the next day, I remembered like having these like red, it was almost like a bomb went off of my body and all these explosion of parasites. It was the weirdest thing. So I did that cleanse, and then we got to a point where he said, okay, let's address the heavy metals. I have an article on my website about this. This is how I found hair mineral analysis. And I was in all these Facebook groups, and I noticed that there was like a common thing. There were all these different groups about all these different problems, but they all had the same problem. So that I knew there was a common thing. And he wanted me to do a urine challenge test. And I was in this group where people had done the urine challenge test, but you have to take a supplement that removes the mercury from stored places so that you can, have it come out in your urine. Well, people had been harmed by taking, I think it's DSM, and they literally had brain problems because the mercury moved to their brain. So my instinct was, I'm not going to do this. But other people were doing hair mineral analysis. So I went back to the doctor and, I thanked him. I said, you helped me tremendously, but, I don't agree with you on your approach to this. So I'm going to part ways. So I got a hair mineral analysis and under a former coach who was working with Dr. Wilson. And I got Dr. Wilson's book because of my nutrition, and my background in nutrition, personal training, and all that. I wanted to learn this. So I said to her, don't give me your analysis. Let me figure it out. And then I'll tell you, what I believe my hair test is. So she gave me my hair test. I did my analysis and I sent it to her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that's exactly it." But as I was reading about it, I realized that there was so much more to the hair mineral analysis interpretation, the way that Dr. Wilson and he learned from Dr. Eck, but there were things about it that I saw, like your hair patterns can really influence not only symptoms, but things about your personality or where you're at spiritually. So I saw that connection like right away. And to me, this was like wish that I had found it 20 years prior. Although, I probably would have like rolled my eyes and been like, I don't want to take all those supplements, and all this stuff. Because, we do that. I admit there are many times in my healing journey that I just didn't want to do what, people asked me to do. It's only when you're like seriously desperate that you're open to making more life changes. So I felt like this was the path for me. And, it just made complete sense. So that's what I did. I started, with the program, changed my diet a little bit and started taking supplements. And by then I was 50 and I was like, right, like I went through menopause. So I went the 1 year without having a cycle. So I'll be 57 in February, and that was at 50. So I've been doing this for 7 years, and I would say from 50 till a year ago, I was still having some challenges. But a lot of that, and I had gained weight, a lot of that was I got into a relationship and marriage that I probably should have not. I probably should have stayed single and just said no to any relationships. But, I also learned a lot in that relationship of some unhealed childhood trauma that I was confronted with, because relationships are like a mirror. We end up with people that are the parent that we had the most challenges with that we didn't heal. So in my case, that was my dad. So I had different versions of my dad's personality in all my relationships. So like the guys were different, but there was like a core thing about them that was similar. And I saw that that was my dad. Um, and, that was challenging. It was hard for me to physically heal going through that releasing of that trauma. And because my ex-husband at the time was not on any journey, and like he would do the hair test because I asked him to, or he'd take some supplements, but he wasn't really working on things. So, it was hard to have conversations, when triggered, to have open conversation, because I believe that, if you get in a relationship with somebody who's also willing to do the work, then that's, you're not going to find somebody that and that you have no problems with. That's just the way it is. We're humans and we have differences and we have triggers, but you want to be with somebody who you can sit down and say, hey, and just have real open, loving conversations. And that was not happening. So I decided, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. So that's when I started healing, is when I got a divorce. And I also went back to work for my old boss. I was self-employed and, doing this and doing some accounting work. I had 4 clients, and one of them was still my former employer, doing some consulting for him. So I ended up going back in a different capacity, but I felt more grateful. Like when I left what I was doing, most of my background is accounting. When I left that, I felt kind of like this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit in an office and sit in front of a desk and, I want to help people, blah, blah, blah. And then I started doing that and I realized that, that has its own drawbacks. It's tough working with people who are sick all the time, So for me, I have more of a left and right brain balance. And with the work that I do, what I call my day job, satisfies a lot of my left brain. And to me, it's like a task results, and the results a lot of times are based on me and my team. So it's easy to do. Whereas with nutrition coaching, uh, most of it has to do with you. Oh, you have to do the work, unfortunately. I can be, a guide, I can answer questions, I can, be there for you, but you have to do the work. So, I wasn't feeling like there's a satisfaction that comes with my clients feeling better and healing. But it's different. And I love, being a part of people's journey. It's just hard to explain. So for me, I like the balance. I need to make money. To make money doing that full time at how much money that I make at my day job, I would not have, I don't think that you can be a completely honest person to make the kind of money that I would make during my day job to support me. I would have to, um, you know, I just don't think that anybody who's making a lot of money doing that, I don't know that they're being completely, like, really caring about people, because if money is a motivating factor because you have to pay the bills, then I think it's easy to persuade people into something, or scare tactics like, you're so toxic, you need to do this program, because they need to make money. So I thought this is great because I really truly love helping people. But it doesn't have, it's not my paycheck. So I have this great balance. I love, what I do during the day. I love doing this. And then, I'm not married, so I'm not dealing with somebody else's trauma and problems and habits and triggers and moods and, all these things. So my life is much more peaceful. So I'm able to reflect now and look back at some of the things that I wish I would have done sooner. The main thing would have been, when it comes to diet and habits, I would have cut out sugar sooner, complex carbs sooner. I would have, mine was my, sorry about that. Oh, so my watch been on my phone. I would have cut out the carbs sooner. I would have cut out alcohol sooner for sure. I would have gotten more sleep. I would have prioritized that and not been hanging out in nightclubs, till 4 a.m. Although I've had a lot of fun. Maybe that's why I'm more peaceful now, because I've done everything. I don't know. I think I would have not burned the candle at both ends in the middle quite so badly. Um, I would have looked at myself and valued myself more and worked on loving myself more so that I didn't tolerate, unhealthy relationships and environments. Um, because I think, all of those things play into how we feel. So it's not, just the diet, it's not just taking the supplements, it is about having healthier habits, less, stimulation, being more grounded, working through your stuff, um, and not, I wouldn't have been a people pleaser as much. I felt a sense of I still struggle with like a sense of responsibility of trying to make other people feel better, how if somebody's depressed or not feeling good, I have this compulsion to try and relieve them of that. But, everybody has to go through what they go through. So, I have to work on those boundaries more, because I don't want to get in the way of somebody else's journey, unless they're asking for it, So you can take what I say and not take it, or say, okay, that resonates with me. It doesn't matter because it's your journey. I just thought I'd share this because there are people who are looking for answers. And for those of you that are not ready to change your diet and some of these things, you can't expect a doctor, a nutritionist, a practitioner, somebody to have this answer that's going to solve all your problems if you're not willing to look at yourself and to make the changes in your diet and your life to put you in a direction of feeling better. It really is your responsibility. So although I believe in being, you doing it at your own pace, I also like to remind my clients, well, you still eat really badly, you're still drinking alcohol, you still have all this dysfunction in your life, you're still going to have problems. You can't expect a supplement program to solve all those problems. So just being realistic of, your progress if you're not, actively trying to make those changes. So I really think, for the women who are in your 30s and 40s, I'm just, it gets better. It's really challenging. I don't mean to laugh. I'm only laughing because I think about, how I was struggling so much and how I feel so much better now. And if I only knew that I would be better later, because when you're in the middle of it, you feel like you're dying, you feel horrible, it's never going to get better. But it does get better, if make some of these changes. I don't know how any woman over 50 could drink alcohol or having any bad habits. I've been wearing a Apple Watch for probably 3 or 4 years now, and it tells you a lot. So I learned, how carbs and things affect me, stress from work. So that's why I have to unwind. But, work is so much more manageable, the stress, when I don't have relationship stress. I don't know. I don't like to say never, but I am not really interested in dating or relationships because it's too traumatizing to me, to deal with somebody else's stuff. So I rather, my bouts of loneliness are so much smaller and passing compared to sleeping next to somebody who's been ignoring me for a week or two. That by far to me is more traumatizing and lonely than the small passing fleeting moments that I have of loneliness now, not having anybody in my life. And I don't have much of a social life because I'm really busy with work. And one of my dogs has social anxiety, has separation anxiety. So just leaving the house is like a big event. I either need to get somebody to watch her, or I have to drug her, which I don't like to do. So most of the time I just have things delivered to me, or I go visit my mom and I can leave the dogs there. And last weekend, I left them there and I went and ran a bunch of errands. So I just have to make those kinds of changes. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling now, but if you're a woman in the middle of these challenges, I totally feel for you. I would not want to go back. Yeah, I got sagging skin and hair falling out, and I'm seeing some baldness and things. I'm still grateful. I think I'm doing well for my age because of these changes that I've made the last 7, 8 years, and then eating healthy for, almost half my life now. It's definitely helped me. But there are things that, show up as you get older that you're like, oh, great. But I am so thankful to not be dealing with the other stuff. So, um, that's the encouragement, is that once you get here, it's made me like a better manager and worker, because my moods are so like even. I can make decisions. I could be empathetic but firm at the same time. It's really a great place. I love, so far I love my 50s. They say it even gets better. You start to care less about what people think of you, and it's pretty awesome. So there are some great things to look forward to once you get through all this hormonal bipolar craziness. So the hair test, the things that show most to help you with that is, we can see your adrenals, if they're overactive, underactive, thyroid, if it's overactive, underactive, how your digestion is. If your sodium potassium ratio is inverted, that'll cause a lot of problems as well. So I find a lot of value in a hair test because you can see those things and address them with supplements and diet. If I would have found hair mineral analysis sooner, um, it may or may not have made sense to me. Everything comes in timing. I was pretty stubborn, so I probably would have blown it off. Um, so for those of you that are interested in a hair test, you can find me on my website, michelledeamber.com. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments section. I'll be happy to respond. And that's it. I hope you have a great day. Bye.